That's carried. Item number 7, the ENERSOURCE Services Agreement. Councillor Parrish.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Carlson. I have a couple of questions. After looking through this, and I don't want to constantly be the one that's asking questions on ENERSOURCE, I would really appreciate it if somebody else would take up this job. But I'd like to know the cost of the contract to ENERSOURCE per year that we're approving this extension on.
Okay, there are basically two different components that ENERSOURCE does work under this arrangement, and that is our regular maintenance for street lighting, which is approximately $2.4 million a year, depending on whatever budget council approves, and capital spending, which is based upon the different capital projects that we do, and that probably averages about $1.5 million. So for in total, it's about $3.9 million worth of work.
And this doesn't include the energy costs attached to it?
No, this is just actually the physical work that ENERSOURCE does to move the street lights, etc.
Okay, my second question is, what amount triggers an RFP or a bidding process in Mississauga for services like this?
That's a good question.
Well, normally for contracted services, we would go out and with a tender process. Basically, this arrangement with ENERSOURCE has been in place for many, many years. Basically, the utility originally looked after street lighting. With the deregulation, council basically approved basically an agreement that was in the form of a contract, similar to what we would do for a contract, where ENERSOURCE basically provided these services to the city. And that was basically the result that there really wasn't a lot of contractors out there that were geared up to be able to do this type of work. With the deregulation, there's been a number of municipalities around us that have put it out to tender. So there are suppliers out there that could bid on such a contract. And that is basically why we've made the arrangement. First of all, what we did with the first extension that council approved last year, we really moved the contract with ENERSOURCE into much more of a unit price type contract, which would be similar to what we do for our traffic signal arrangements. And basically what we're recommending is one additional year. We have had discussions with ENERSOURCE and basically advised them that at this time it's our intent after the next year to move to putting this out to tender. So they are aware of that, and we will be working with management studies to do that. So keeping in mind that there needs to be lead time, number one, it's not just ENERSOURCE that needs to be aware of this. The city does not have the structure or resources to put it out to a traditional type contract. So we would need to resource for that, and also to put a proper tender together. It'll be something that will take some time. So that is basically our proposal with this, is to continue to work to get ourselves ready over the next year with the intent that we would put it out to tender after the next year, and then there would also need to be a lead time. So that's why the timing in the report talks, it is some length of time to actually move us to that.
And would that require a lot of resources on the part of the city to get that in place?
It would depend on which approach we take. Keep in mind that ENERSOURCE is not only acting as our contractor now, they're actually acting, I would refer them almost like a consultant. They do all the designs. We do have one person that oversees it and basically has been getting much more involved in street lighting, so that we have some knowledge so that we could actually move towards this type of model. But they do all of the sort of professional consulting type expertise. The city, other than the one staff person, doesn't have any expertise. If we move to a model like our traffic signals, we would need to have really that professional expertise in-house, so that we had the expertise and could administer a contract. So the result would be that we would move to having more staff, city staff, that would administer a street lighting contract. And that would be similar to the model of other municipalities like Brampton and Hamilton, what they have done.
Now, my understanding is that ENERSOURCE picked up the slack on Brampton for a year, and then they tendered theirs, and ENERSOURCE came in very high on that tender and didn't win it. Do you anticipate the same thing? Would we tender first? We're going to have 2 or 3 or 4 people or companies bid on it?
Well, I guess, my experience with tenders is it's until you actually see the results, you really don't know. I think that it's probably been an experience for ENERSOURCE, but you never know. I mean, I've heard rumors that the Brampton tender was extremely low, so sometimes contractors will cut prices to get in, etc. So you never really know until the tenders are closed. I think what's important, if we're going to put it out to tender and go this route, is that we have to make sure we have a contract that has the right specifications in it so that we get the quality of service, because that is always a big fear, that if you write a sloppy spec, then the contractor will be looking for ways to cut corners.
Well, the attached document 7C, 7D looks pretty specific, and it looks like you've given it a lot of thought, and you're 3/4 of the way there. Do you think it's going to take you to 2009 to come up with the specs you need for a tender?
Well, that was the proposal. I mean, if we were to move now to go out to tender so that we wouldn't have to extend the contract, we would have to, number one, put ENERSOURCE on it by the middle of June the 15th. They would have to be aware that we were going this route. I think probably we would have to move very quickly to either hire a consultant to help us put together a tender, because the tender would have to be out. It would be a lengthy process if we wanted to make sure that we had the services provided properly. I think my comment would be, it may be doable, but it would be something that we would have to turn our attention to and get some outside help to be able to pull it off.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate those answers.
Thank you, Mayor Mahoney.
I'm wondering if the staff is I don't recall us asking of selling our street lighting as Toronto has done. They sold it to Toronto Hydro, and therefore what the implications would be of selling our street lighting.
Well, that is obviously something that the City of Toronto did. My personal opinion in it is it's more of a way to offset some of the cost and to get the upfront capital. The difficulty is that you will not have as much control on your street lighting. I know that I have heard some feedback that in Toronto they are having some difficulty coordinating things, but it is another model that could be looked at, and that's something we could look at if Council wished. But you would really then have absolutely no say in street lighting, and it would be basically a performance-based arrangement where the ENERSOURCE would be responsible then.
Could you bring forth a report when you do the tendering on what the implications are? I think I would think that Toronto is about the first city that has sold their street lighting. Maybe we should get the experience of as to what the benefits or disadvantages are to it. How has it worked? You don't see much comment on it in the newspapers. That's about how we have to. I will be meeting with Dave O'Brien in a couple of weeks, and that's one thing I want to ask him. Has this street lighting process worked? I know it means the city loses control, and I know why Toronto Hydro bought it. So they have control of renting out the street lighting, so there's pros and cons to it. But I think we should look at it and decide that it's not either that it's not the thing to do, or decide that maybe we should look at it more seriously.
I mean, my advice would be that be part of the review. Management studies will be working with us already. We had identified that, and that's in the report. We could come back to Council within the next year with basically a review of that model, as well as the implications of putting it out to tender and what the resource implications are. I think that would be the prudent way to deal with it, so that we got all of our ducks in order and reviewed things properly, and Council had all the information in front of them so that they could make an informed decision.
Thanks very much, Councilor Parrish.
Yes, ever prudent, I will move the motion with the clear understanding that you will be working very hard to get all that stuff done before we have to look at this again in a year.
We will definitely do that.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, thanks very much.